Good evening, friends. Today we are going to take a little trip back into the year of 1987, when a little point-and-click adventure game was created for the Mac. It was created by Dave Marsh and Carl, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Roloffs, maybe Reoloffs, who knows. They created a little game called Shadowgate. Shadowgate is one of my favorite games of all time. It's a point-and-click adventure set in a high fantasy world called Tiragon. It's a little generic, the setting, but what really sells it is the atmosphere. The story, like I said, it's kind of your typical high fantasy where it's about an evil warlock lord who is banished by 12 wizards or magi or something. And you are the lone hero who must enter this dark and foreboding castle and stop the warlock lord from bringing the behemoth out from the depths of the earth. So, in and of itself, the story is nothing to really write home about. But the execution is what really does it. The execution to this game is so good. I've never played the Mac version. It's black and white. There's no soundtrack. What we're talking about is the absolutely perfect NES version of this game. It was produced by Kemco, and the soundtrack to this game is hands down one of the best soundtracks of any NES game that ever came out. So let's crack this bad boy open. Take a look. Look at that gargoyle. Whoa. Look at how mean that gargoyle is. What's his deal? He's breaking out of his stones. That's a real gargoyle in there. We got this game at Toys R Us, not this specific copy. I got this copy at a really great chain of video game stores called Game Over Video Games. They're native to Texas, but I know they've branched out. I think they have a Seattle location. So, this guy, when we got our original copy as kids, we got it from Toys R Us. And how could you not want a game that looks like that? That game looks rad. It was really confusing, though. When you're a kid, you don't think to look for a key inside of a skull. So how are you going to know to click open the skull? There was no internet. There was no Let's Plays. There were no walkthroughs. We didn't have any of that. If you had Nintendo Power, you were lucky, and if you didn't, you were screwed. Maybe you had a friend who had Nintendo Power. Maybe you had a friend who played the game. Who knows? But I am the one who discovered open the skull gets you the first key. And from there on in, we dove into the depths of the castle Shadowgate. And what a dive that is. So, here's a crummy little used instruction manual I got. It doesn't have a cover, but let's take a look at this right here. Castle Shadowgate, with its secret passageways, collapsing floors, and armed creatures. Oh, I guess there was a sentence that I missed part of there. Your courage and wisdom will see you through, but a good sword might be helpful. Oh, look at that. That is falling apart. So as you can see, I mean, it's not in color. There's a screen that greets you. Just a big, empty, black door, vacuous, full of foreboding possibilities. Here we have our button layout for the NES controller. You've got your D-pad. You've got your select and start, your A and B, and here's what they all do. Yeah. You want some hints? You use the select button. That's a really great feature, actually. Usually the hints were kind of vague, and sometimes it would get fed up with you asking, so it would just, I guess if you've done everything important, it just tries to hurry you along. B button, not used. It's just a point and click. You just move the cursor around like a mouse, which is obnoxious, but you know, it works. Ooh. Oh, you see that there? You see that wraith? That wraith. Oh, come on, autofocus. That wraith is one bad dude. The objective of the game. You must explore the depths of the castle and prevent the evil warlock lord from bringing darkness upon the land. If you are fortunate enough to be killed in your quest, you will have the option of resuming your quest where you left off. So you die a lot in this game if you never played it before. There are things that you pick up that open trap doors, that alert statues to murder you. You might accidentally drink something that burns your throat away. There are all kinds of creatures that can kill you. There are wyverns and hellhounds and fire-breathing dragons and trolls. So as you can see, you have your inventory on the right here. You've got your menu options here. There's a little save option down there. This is a battery. This cartridge uses a battery for saves. So a lot of the times what happens with these old cartridges is that the battery starts to die and your save state never sticks. There was another game that these guys produced called Deja Vu, and none of my save states work. I gotta get the battery replaced. So use a lot of like your typical point and click things. Look at, use, open, close, take, hit. The hit one's funny because you can hit yourself. And like all good graphic adventures that use this sort of point and click interface, there are plenty of ways that you can accidentally do yourself in. Or purposely do yourself in. I guess you can light yourself on fire with a torch. Oh wait, did I? Alright, so remember what I was saying before about open skull? You see that little dude there? That little skull right there? That skull. We had no idea you could open it. Anyway, that's where that first key is. Here's a little preview of what some of the commands do. Look, take, open, close, use. Hit, leave, speak. You don't use speak a lot. The creatures in this game don't really want to speak much. There's not much in the way of NPCs. It's just you and the castle and a handful of really mean monsters that want nothing to do with you. Just a little bit about some of the options, saving, hints, etc. And the compliance with FCC regulations. If you have any questions, I'm sure the U.S. Government Printing Office in Washington, D.C. will be happy to answer them. So the soundtrack to this game is extremely moody. It uses a lot of reverb. That reverb gives you a feeling of isolation in a large and foreboding space. You feel lost and abandoned. And when your torches start to gutter, the music speeds up. It gets really frantic. That's one big thing about this game. There's a finite number of torches, and the way it sort of stretches out the gameplay is that those torches gutter out and you die, and you're greeted by this big, horrible, it's like it cuts away to a picture of death smiling at you. He's holding a big sickle and he says, "I'm sorry that your journey had to end here." It's a great ending. It's one of the best game over scenes in the entire NES library. It is absolutely fantastic. And So what you learn throughout the game is how to conserve your resources, how to pick up the things that you only need, how to make the most of your time before your torches run out, because once they're out, they're out. And when you get good enough at it, you can usually beat this game within under a half an hour. So that's pretty good. I know it like the back of my hand at this point, but I still love to pop it open every once in a while and just do a quick playthrough. I'd forgotten what it was like to be worried while playing this game, what it was like to be stressed out. But in 2012, the company founded by the creators of this game, the aforementioned David Marsh and Carl R., they started a company called Zoojoy, and they kickstarted a remake of this game. It uses a lot of the same scenarios, but it's a totally different game, and it is really good. And I have died so many times. I have picked up so much useless garbage in that remake, not knowing what to do with it, and you kind of get stuck a little sometimes on a game like this, where you just start running through your inventory and trying to figure out, can I use this with this? Can I use this with this? Can I use this with this? You get a little bit of inventory fatigue in a point-and-click adventure, and that's probably the worst part, is the inventory fatigue. But I mean, I guess that's a small complaint. It's just, what else are you gonna do to make a menu-based game difficult? You know, it's a collect-a-thon. So anyway, I would recommend either going on GOG or Steam and picking up a copy of the Shadowgate remaster. It comes with the original soundtrack, and you can pixelate the graphics if you want that retro feel, but I prefer the gorgeous hand-drawn artwork myself. Oh, and one thing that's different about the remake is that at some point you have a curse, and that curse, it becomes more and more severe as the game goes on. So in addition to the torches going out, you have this curse trying to kill you the whole time. And it really pushes you to sort of come down with a system of getting through the first half of the game, I guess. I haven't beaten the game yet. I don't know if I will. I'll try to come back to it one day, but it's pretty tough. The next item we're going to look at here is a prequel book called Before Shadowgate. If you compare these covers, you'll notice this gargoyle's tail is rounded off and his horns were removed. And the reason is that this book was more marketed towards children than the game was. So since this has a sort of all ages demographic they were shooting for, this is specifically for kids. So they made it less devilish and more just like a gargoyle. It was part of the Worlds of Power series. The Worlds of Power series were a way for people to... You can't stop kids from wanting to play games, but you can use games as a gateway to get them to read novels. That was the hypothesis when they created this series. You can see the book is created by someone under the pseudonym FX9. FX9 is just the pen name of a collective of authors who worked on these games, I think. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. This is a prequel to the game. So you play a teenager making his way through the land of Tiragon. I can't remember what your name is. Let's take a look real quick. What's your name? Jaren. That's right, Jaren. Your name is Jaren. And basically, this book, which as you can see from the yellowing is quite old and previously belonged to a David H. Anyway, this book comes with hints because, again, as I said before, there's no internet at this time. So they throw in some hints to make the game easier for you. That way they would assume that you would already have the game or that you would buy it because of this tie-in. Oh look, there we go. Ellen Miles is the author. There's our guys, David Marsh and Carl Rudolphs. Maybe Seth Godin is FX9. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, this book gets you up to the gate of this castle. And that's where that ends. The writing, it's not my favorite. It was kind of a struggle to get through this book and not give up on it because it's very plucky. But it is violent. There's a lot of violence in this book. Things are murdered. Lots of goblins and things are just absolutely wrecked by the wizard Lackmere. There was also a sequel. Let me see if I can find it. There we go. Yes, yes, yes. You see this guy here? This is Shadowgate 64, Trials of the Four Towers. This is the only actual sequel to Shadowgate. And it takes place far in the future. It's still produced by Kemco, as you can see here. But unlike the glorious chiptune soundtrack of the NES game, this one's got more of an ambient sort of soundtrack. It's got that N64 MIDI thing going on, so it's a little less memorable. But there is a cathedral in here that has the most gorgeous organ music. I love church music in old video games, and this one is a special example. But this takes place in a ruined castle, Shadowgate. The original game takes place in more of a living castle that's populated with living monsters. It's run by the Warlock Lord. You know, it's a dangerous place that's in use. In this one, it's fallen completely into ruin and has been taken over by thieves. And you're just an unlucky traveler who gets caught up in this whole thing. So you've got to get out of the castle. You start off in a dungeon. And you go from tower to tower with the ghost of Lackmere helping you along. And at the end of it, the Warlock... spoilers ahead. At the end of it, the Warlock Lord is revived. And you have to stop him. Because, you don't want the world to end or anything like that. So this one's a lot more gray and brown and dark and depressing. You really feel like you're in a ruin. So it loses some character, but it gets a little bit more mood to it. It's very moody. It's very dark. So yeah, each game really carries the weight of the castle in its present state, and you kind of get the impression that the castle is just as much a character as you are. This one's even lonelier. You meet a couple NPCs later on, but there's not much in the way of monsters or characters. It's really just the castle and you. And it's just a haunt, it's just a decrepit, rundown old haunt. But I would highly recommend both these games. There's very little in the way of anything like combat in this one. The first one, you do kill some things. This one, not really. It's more about evasion and exploration, so it's a good game if you're just looking to escape death. Or, take a little joy in dying. Because you do die. You die a lot. So yeah. There's Shadowgate. Oh, and I forgot to mention, there's a Game Boy Color re-release of this game. It's called Shadowgate Classic. And it's just like this. It's almost identical. Except that it's hard to fit the entire menu on the screen. So what you end up doing is scrolling around a lot. Scrolling up and scrolling down and up and down, and the screen moves, and it's... don't play it in the car. But it is a faithful remake. So yeah, I own every Shadowgate game except for the original Mac version. I got the NES version, I got the Game Boy Classic version, I've got the N64 sequel, I've got the digital download of the remaster, and I even got the crummy old book because I just adore Shadowgate. I love it. It's so good. That little picture I had from the beginning, this little dude, it's just part of a lava puzzle. You gotta do something to make this little guy descend into this hole here to make a bridge. I think you speak one of the spells. This game has spells that you speak to have various effects on your environment. Anyway, it's good. It's very, very good. I think this might have been my first point-and-click adventure. Maybe that's why I'm so fond of it. Maybe it's just a nostalgic attachment. Anyway, I would highly, highly, highly recommend getting your hands on either a copy of this or the Game Boy Color version. Grabbing you one of these dudes, which usually goes for 20 bucks. You can usually get this for 20. You can get this guy for 12 to 15. And you know, GOG and Steam are always running sales. I got a copy of I got the digital version of the remaster for I think $6. It was on sale one day. This guy's a little harder to come by. I think I paid $15 for it. It can go for more than this. It was cheap, I think, because you know it's got a little damage on the spine here. But this one you can skip, unless you're a hardcore fan. But the original, absolutely get it. You might have a ROM of it. If you do and you haven't played it, do play it. Absolutely do. And try not to look up hints if you can help it, unless you're looking up physical copies of hints in something like this, or a game guide, or a Nintendo Power. Try to experience this world the way it was meant to be experienced.